All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. We are cutting through the noise and diving straight into the dense, critical data of the August 20th Wildfire Report. We really need to unpack the true scale of the crisis currently facing the United States. There's so much information flying around in the news right now, but we are going to look directly at the ground truth. The incident reports, the weather models, the raw numbers, just to understand exactly what is happening out there on the fire lines.
Okay, we absolutely have to start with this staggering number, 7,510,237. Let that just sink in for a second. That is the total amount of acres that have burned across the U.S. so far in 2026. It instantly shows us the incredible stakes of this crisis. To put that into perspective for you, that's an area larger than the entire state of Maryland, just completely scorched. It's a massive, landscape-altering event. To wrap our heads around an event of this magnitude, here is our roadmap. First, the national wildfire crisis. Second, the weather fueling the flames. Third, the worst-hit regional hotspots. And finally, the massive coordinated response.
Part 1. The National Wildfire Crisis. Let's pull back and look at exactly where the country stands today, operationally speaking.
So the most crucial point right now is that the entire U.S. is sitting at preparedness level 5. In the firefighting world, this is the absolute highest tier of alert. It means we've got several geographic areas experiencing major incidents at the exact same time. Basically, our national wildland firefighting resources are stretched to their absolute limits, and districts are having to actively compete for the same crews, aircraft, and equipment.
When I first saw these numbers, I honestly had to do a double take. The sheer volume here is incredibly difficult to process. Firefighters responded to 117 brand new fires that sparked just yesterday alone. 4 of those immediately blew up into what they classify as large fires. And remember, that's just the new activity. That's all being added to the 72 massive, totally uncontained fires that crews are already out there trying to manage. It brings the grand total for 2026 to nearly 50,000 individual wildfires.
Section 2. Weather fueling the flames. What is actually driving this immense explosion of fire activity across so many different states all at once? For that, we've got to look to the skies.
The report brilliantly illustrates the perfect storm we're facing. It points to 3 distinct climate drivers happening simultaneously. First, there's this punishing western heat dome, pushing temperatures into the 90s and low 110s, and dropping humidity into the single digits. It's essentially turning forest into giant tinderboxes. Second, you have lingering monsoonal moisture down in the desert southwest. That brings thunderstorms, which unfortunately means dry lightning strikes and incredibly erratic winds. And finally, extreme heat paired with 15 to 25 mile-per-hour wind gusts in the southern plains. Mother Nature is basically fanning our own flames from coast to coast.
Actually, before we look at the specific regions, let's quickly decode some of the tactical jargon from these incident reports, because knowing these terms totally changes how you understand the threat. When a report says a fire has moderate behavior, it means it's creeping, backing down slopes, smoldering along the ground, like the moderate fire in Washington. It's manageable. But extreme fire behavior? That is a whole different beast. This involves crowning and group torching, meaning the fire is terrifyingly leaping across the very tops of the trees. It also involves long-range spotting, where winds carry burning embers miles ahead of the main fire to start brand new ones.
All right, Section 3. Worst-hit regional hotspots. Let's zoom the lens in and look at the specific geographies bearing the brunt of this disaster.
What is really staggering about this data is the sheer, unbelievable scale of the fires in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon and Washington are battling absolute mega fires right now. Look at Oregon's Big Grass Fire in the Vail District. It has consumed an unfathomable 579,000 acres. The Rowdy Creek Complex right behind it is sitting at 373,000 acres. Up in Washington, the Little Giant Fire is actively exhibiting that dangerous group torching behavior we just talked about, and it's directly threatening critical infrastructure and homes outside of Leavenworth.
Moving inland into the Great Basin and the Rockies, the scale remains totally massive. Usually a 100,000-acre fire is the defining event of a decade for a state. Right now, it's just a Tuesday. Utah, Colorado, and Nevada are all managing massive, complex, single fires that are approaching or exceeding 100,000 acres each, burning straight through national forests and critical watersheds.
But size isn't everything. Down in New Mexico, the Frijoles fire in the Santa Fe National Forest is comparatively way smaller, at just over 13,000 acres. But it is highly volatile. It is displaying that extreme crowning and long-range spotting behavior we defined earlier.
Because it's moving so aggressively through the tree canopy and jumping ahead of itself, it's incredibly dangerous for crews to fight on the ground, and it's forcing immediate evacuations and structural closures.
Section 4. The massive coordinated response. Faced with this overwhelming natural disaster, it's time to look at the incredible human effort stepping up to the challenge. Right now, there are exactly 25,248 dedicated personnel assigned to incidents nationwide. That is literally a small army of men and women. They are away from their families, working in 100-degree heat, breathing smoke, cutting lines, and just working tirelessly to protect homes, communities, and our public lands.
Let's look at how a response like this actually builds, because a preparedness level 5 means local resources are completely exhausted. This isn't just a local response anymore. It is a highly organized, multi-tiered operation. It starts with our national wildland firefighters, but it is now scaled up to include active military detachments and even vital international partners who have flown across the globe to step into the command tents.
When we say the cavalry has arrived, we mean it literally. The Department of Defense has deployed 240 infantry soldiers from Joint Base Lewis McChord to physically fight Washington's Little Giant Fire. Up in the skies, military C-130s equipped with massive retardant drop systems are flying missions all over Oregon and California. And on the logistical side, nearly 200 allied fire specialists and 3 full incident management teams have traveled all the way from Australia and New Zealand to help manage the overwhelming logistics of these Northwest megafires.
So, as we process the immense scale of these 7.5 million acres, the extreme weather driving them, and the phenomenal global collaboration required to fight them, we're left with a really critical question. With fire seasons growing longer and more intense, how will our emergency forces, both domestic and international, adapt to preparedness level 5 as the potential new normal? It is a logistical and environmental puzzle we are going to have to solve, and quickly. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a much clearer picture of the situation on the ground. Keep learning and stay curious.